All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm excited for this last happy hour of 2020. We will continue to do these again. We'll start them up in January just so that we can continue to do this while we're all still at home. But for today, we do have special guests with us. We have Dave King, who used to be with Davidson's, and he's awesome. He's if anyone knows him or has had any of his cocktails, you know that all of his cocktails are great. So it's a special treat to have him with us tonight, and we're super excited to be able to have him back. And just a few things to get us started. Special thank you to Davidson's, especially as we're closing the year out. All of the amazing support that they have given HRCA and us to be able to continue to do events even in these crazy times and being able to turn these virtual. So thank you. Special thank you to all of you guys. I know that there are some people who have been with us from the beginning to now since we've gone virtual. So I really do appreciate you guys sticking with us and supporting these virtual events. It means the world to us, and we'll continue to do them as long as we still have those people showing up. So thank you so much. And as well, just a few things we will get, just a few things. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and keep yourself muted throughout the event just so we don't have all that background noise and so that you guys can hear Dave with all the instructions. And with that, we will do the ugly sweater contest too. That's the other thing that is new tonight. You have an ugly sweater. I pulled out a onesie tonight and some nice light up necklace. And I see a couple other people having some great attire on too. So if you did dress up in your ugly sweaters, we will be doing the ugly sweater contest after the second cocktail. So if you don't have your camera on now, but you want to participate in it, make sure you turn on your camera after the second cocktail, and we'll go through and do that. And you have a chance to win a Davidson's gift card. So that's awesome. We hope that you guys participate in that. And with that, I will go ahead and send it over to Dave, and he can get us started.
Good evening, everyone. How's my volume? Can we hear me? Hello? Can everyone hear me?
We're all on mute.
All right. Some thumbs up. I'm working from a camera and a computer, so I'll hopefully stay in focus as much as possible. Tonight is the kind of cocktails I'm going to show you. I'm going to take you through kind of like a dinner course of sets for yourself. I like to call this prep cocktailing. 10 years plus in the kitchen, we always did prep cooking. We didn't really take that level to cocktails. So I don't know, this first cocktail tonight, this punch we're making with the El Dorado 5-year, the first thing we're going to do is actually make a mulled spice tea. And kind of the reason I chose the ingredients that we do, these are all things I buy for Thanksgiving. They all kind of aren't used fully, you know, so we all buy like the rosemary, the allspice, the cloves, sometimes star anise, oranges, limes. And what do you do when that food kind of gets kind of wilted? Well, one of the great things you can do is make a spiced tea. So there's two ways to do this. You can make it up as a big batch, keep it in a crock pot, or you can just make the spiced tea and then use portions of it throughout the week to make yourself an individual cocktail. We'll kind of go for both. There's not really a need to like fully measure well. The one ingredient that I do personally measure very well is sugar. I don't want to add a lot of sugar, but brown sugar. And what's really great is if your brown sugar got really, really hard, you can still use it. It's going to soften up, get really nice and easy. So if you're like me to make the tea first, you have your trusty tea kettle, which gives me all my caffeine every morning. If not, I recommend we just use a pot. So I've kicked on my tea kettle. While that's getting ready, I've already washed all of my fruits and rosemary, and we'll just kind of zest your lemons, your limes, kind of coarsely, doesn't need to be perfect. So just go around in a circle, 2 limes. And the reason we're zesting is we're really trying to get that pop of that citrus when we get it into the tea. So hopefully this is showing up easily on camera. So I threw that sugar into our mixing bowl where we'll mull our tea up.
I don't know what the hell he's doing. He's doing something to the.
So now that I've got my zest on my cutting board, easily just throw it into this pot. So far we got that tablespoon of brown sugar, the lemon and the orange zest, and then 2 sprigs of rosemary right here. Really easy way to take, if you want more intense rosemary, is take it from the top and just run your finger and fork and thumb down the top of it. What we're doing here is breaking up the rosemary essence, and that will help it get into the tea more. So for this recipe at about 13% alcohol, we're going to use 2 tea bags. If you'd like to cut it in half, definitely just double all your non-alcoholic ingredients. So I like to buy my spices in the little tiny amounts, usually in the Mexican spice section. So we're going to use about a tablespoon of whole allspice, 1 individual little star anise, and about a teaspoon of cloves. We're just getting that ready while the water's heating up. Now with ginger, you have 2 options. You can either peel it, which will give you a sweeter aspect, or leave it just washed and in the skin, which will give you a little bit more bitterness. Just roughly slice it. As you can see, I'm just getting little round circles and throwing them in there. So why I love the tea kettles, it just heats up really, really nicely, really quick. And we're going to use 12 ounces of hot water. And we're just going to let our little spice sit. So while that's sitting there, we can do the rest of the ingredients. So we've got the El Dorado 5-year and our pear and our pitcher that we'll keep in the fridge. So reason I chose 12 ounces is because it's about half a 750. So very easy to also double the alcohol if you choose to do a double batch. So you're just kind of using a bottle there. Equal parts water, juice, and rum. The tea is going to need about 6 minutes to steep. And that tea, again, made here in Colorado, Celestial Seasonings apple spice tea. Sorry, mismeasured there. The fun thing about batch cocktails, you don't need to be perfect. So anyone can kind of do it kind of nice, rough, rustic style. So then we'll use the limes and the oranges, and we're just going to cut them so that we can juice them. Usually I cut my oranges into quarters, limes in half, and just take your strainer, put it over the top of your pitcher. That way we can avoid seeds and just start squeezing. This will just take roughly about a minute. Get all that juice out. I like to actually turn because sometimes the juice will sit on top of that skin. So the reason I like to use orange and lime is that kind of mix between sweet and bitter to really go with that anisette from star anise and the savoriness of the clove and the allspice. Now, if you don't have clove, allspice, and star anise, you can easily use a couple teaspoons of mulling spice. All right. So while we wait, I'll talk a little bit about why I chose the El Dorado 5-year. So the El Dorado 5-year is aged in former bourbon barrels. Very nice. If you've ever heard the term Demerara, that's the distillery. It's a type of nice savory brown sugar, kind of your nice holiday kind of style rum. Not overly sweet, not really any sugar added. And while we wait, if you were to serve the cocktail cold, always like to add a little bit of bubbles. So this Giuseppe is actually a state fruit, very dry Prosecco, so we're not adding any more sweetness. As far as sugars, most of it's going to come from the juice, and a tablespoon of brown sugar, which is done for texture, is going to be about 17 calories. So the one fun thing is while you wait, your few minutes, you can easily sit back, enjoy Prosecco maybe a little bit while you wait for your tea to cool down. Oh, someone asked me to show me what I did with the zester, so hopefully I'll get this better on camera. What I like to do is your zester's curved. So it's curving right now that way. I like to take my thumb, put it right towards the top where the 3 holes are. Grab your citrus and push. So you get one line, and you just keep trying to move a little bit of a quarter turn to just kind of get that zest as much as you can out of it. The nice thing about a zester is you can usually avoid the white pithy part that will add a bitterness. So I don't know if that's coming through a little bit clearer. And as you can see, as these limes get a little bit older, it's a little bit tougher, but it's not a big deal. We're kind of over zesting the tea to make it really kind of a nice, strong lime zest kind of flavor. Did that help, Jamie? And might as well save that zest and just go ahead and use it with our tea there. Forgive me, it's my first time on camera. I'm not I hope I'm showing it well enough. So we need about 5 to 6 minutes on this guy. It's been, I want to say about 3 or 4. As you can see here, I've got this little bit of orange pulp in the top of my zester. Very easily can just hammer that down the sink. Nothing to worry about. And we'll just save this here because when this is cooled down and the tea is infused, we're just going to strain it through here and just set it to chill. Or if you were to serve this as an individual cocktail, you strain this into something separate and then put it in like a ball jar. And that way all week you can just be measuring it out one by one. So it's where the trusty little cocktail shaker and stir stick. I see someone ask me the most important question is where did I get my He-Man and She-Ra sweater? I believe it was Cool 80s Tees. Kind of a random impulse purchase. So I appreciate that from Matt Grigio. Throwing that in there, I figure we all can enjoy a nice comedic sweater. And if you've not tried the Entame yet by itself, it is a state fruit, very nice, easy Prosecco. And that's why I like it when we're gonna serve this cocktail cold. It's just gonna add that nice bit of bubbles and it's gonna cut that sugar very, very nicely. Kind of gives it, when you have an apple and pears are very similar, so by adding Prosecco, when it's chilled, you get a very nice complement to that pear juice that we've added in there. So I don't know if anyone has stirred up their mulled tea yet, but you can see how like nice and pungent-y it's getting. So that's kind of the whole goal, is really to make that nice mulled tea. So for purposes of showing the two difference, I'm just going to go ahead now and just kind of strain it. So if you were serving it, decided to chill this and serve it cold, you have your separate tea part. Just go ahead and get your pear juice ready. And I like to do equal parts of the rum, nice 1.5 ounces. Ounce and a half of that pear juice. Now we won't use any of actual added orange juice, because we'll actually, when making it individually, you want that lime to be a little bit stronger. So just juice that in there. We'll pretend this guy's cold. And the reason I went to 2 ounces of the tea blend when you're serving an individual drink is kind of cut back that alcohol. We're actually increasing the alcohol percentage in the individual. So you have fruit juice, you have your rum, you have your lime. Top it with some nice ice. And you can give it a nice quick either stir, like this is just a very nice kind of wrist motion. The reason I like metal lime is you can feel the temperature change. You can also shake it, really won't affect the cocktail. Because you have that fruit juice, so you can definitely shake it. Give it a nice top off. Love my nice 9-ounce tumbler, very simple. Give yourself a little room, as I've done here. And just give it a little bubbles. Makes it that nice holiday feel. And what you notice as an individual cocktail is you get a lot more of that pear juice coming through, and that's because of that lime. Now, if we're doing back to doing a batch, we've already strained our tea. You can go easily through the same strainer into the pitcher. Give her a quick stir. And you can also just keep this for about 2 weeks until the tea breaks down, because we've added enough fruit juice, enough alcohol to really kind of preserve it. So it's kind of like a nice winter warmer meet and greet cocktail. You can keep it all week. You can actually use one of those champagne bubble savers, keep your bubbles all week, and have a nice drink ready to go, so you don't miss any of the action of Elf or the Hallmark Christmas movies that you're watching. But they're very complex plots. So we're going to hold on to our strainer. Excuse me, our citrus squeezer. I'm just going to take 2 seconds to clear the board. Does anyone have any questions on that cocktail? I'm going to take a second and see if I can see any ugly sweaters myself. Forgive me, I have a very old computer. Can't figure out exactly what is on James' sweater. See a Santa hat? Is that a Velociraptor or a T-Rex? Nicely done, James. Nicely done. I'm a big Jurassic Park fan myself. Very intricate part of my childhood. So the nice thing about this punch is it goes really well before your meal, nicely with salads, your bread course. Like I said, in its current form, this is going to be about 13% alcohol. You'll pour it on ice, about 3 ounces. You'll top with bubbles. That'll be about 15% alcohol, which is like a strong wine. So about 4 to 5 ounces total will be a serving. Now, if you want it a little bit weaker, it's just double all of the non-alcohol ingredients. It still comes out lovely. It comes about 6 to 7% alcohol. So then your serving size is about 10 ounces. Just keeps it light, festive, lets you focus on the family a little bit more. Or if you prefer, you can always just go a little stronger. So this next one is a spaghetti western. And the name is derived from the fact that we're going to blend a Wild West whiskey with some nice Italian liqueur. And every holiday in my family used to always involve Old Westerns. So it's a very kind of holiday-esque cocktail for us. So the spirits and why we picked them for this. So this is actually a single barrel, single malt that I picked out from Santa Fe Spirits in New Mexico. And it's their Kilchoman that is finished in an apple brandy cask. So they take 100% smoked, 100% malted barley. They use smoked mesquite wood, very American. Mesquite matches very well with apples, pork, all of those kind of savory holiday flair, your stuffings. So at first they make the single malt, 53-gallon barrel, New American Oak. It's in there for 4 years. Kilchoman, Santa Fe Spirits also makes their own apple brandy. It's a very sweet apple brandy. They age it in a smaller 30-gallon barrel. What they then bottle that apple brandy, and you have that barrel with all that nice sweetness of the apples. They take their smoked single malt. They finish in that little 30-gallon barrel for over a year. So now you've added mesquite and apples. You've got a beautiful pairing. Now, I know aperitivo spritzes are becoming more popular. Americans are getting more familiar with aperitivos, the most popular being Aperol. Now, every single one has their own unique herb blend. So this one made by CAFA, what I love about it for this cocktail is it actually uses cochineal, and that creates kind of like that candy sugar kind of coating that you get on like a Good and Plenty candy without any of the anise, just that like nice full body. Their herbs are less bitter than in something like an Aperol. It's a little bit less sweet than some of the other brands out there as well. So it's that balance of the sweetness meets the whiskey. And in a lot of ways, you're borrowing a lot of flavors from the Negroni, but you're really trying to accentuate how unique and fun a smoked single malt can be to make this wonderful cocktail. So this one, we'll need our shaker, our spoon, our single malt, our aperitivo. I like to actually measure on this one because we are serving a stronger drink. When we do the 2 ounces and an ounce of this, that's what we would call in safe serving a 2-serving drink. So typically the safe serving aspect is 1 of these an hour. The nice thing about the smoke in the single malt is it's not overpowering and it will match your foods really well. So it's a good one to have mid-course. That's where that nice cochineal kind of candy shell perception comes through and makes this a good food cocktail. Now, if you haven't already, it is definitely worth pouring just to see how we're going to change the flavors by mixing in fruit citrus and your aperitivo. It's always important to taste all your ingredients to really understand how a cocktail melds. So one of the things that comes from single malts and New American Oak is that more of that bitterness, and then smoke will also be coming through more mildly. Wood smoke tends to go more towards our sweet receptors. So you've got like a bittersweet whiskey, and then we're going to top it with what is a bitter, but what's going to happen as they morph with the orange citrus is you're actually going to get a perception of sweetness that's not really there, which is why that cutting back works really, really well with food. So, very simply, love a 2-to-1. So, got my little ounce shot glass that I actually got at Hershey Park back in the last century. As you can see, it's worn out pretty heavily. I think I was destined to do this. So this is that Cole Keegan single cask. We called it Everything Nice because it does have all of that holiday flair, the apples, the spice, and we're very cheesy with names. This is that Cathon Aperitivo. And this is also a play on the Negroni, the Boulevardier, which is kind of the bourbon whiskey version. And we'll need about half an orange. So these oranges are about the size of a softball. So that's going to usually make about 1 ounce. I like to flip mine this way, so I'm pressing the skin. And then turn it to get as much juice as possible out of each little quarter. So we've done about that half orange. Now, nice little trick, because we want to serve this on the ice, which is one of my favorite things. So you take your glass. There's something about those ice chips kind of like breaking up a little bit. So just fill your glass with ice and drop that into your shaker. That way you're measured almost exactly to your glass. Take your trusty little serve spoon. And we're just going to give this a gentle stir. Now, someone asked me why, even with citrus, I'm not shaking this earlier. And I don't come across harsh. So we have a smoked whiskey with wood smoke. And if you shake it, it's going to be more whiskey forward, and it's going to be a little bit more bitter, which you might like if you're really into smoked spirits. But for a lot of people, this is one of the few smoked times of a smoked spirit that they actually can enjoy. And it's not too much for their palate. So the reason I like these metal shakers, and it's not going to show up on camera, is you can actually feel the temperature change. And when it gets to the point where I can barely hold it anymore, I know that I've mixed my cocktail. So basically to the top. So that cochineal gave it a nice bright kind of red, kind of beautiful blood orange. Kind of went a little bit too high for a mustache. Sorry about that. But as you first taste it, you'll see how that orange is in the background. You'll see how that cochineal and that kind of aperitivo actually gave a little bit more of that kind of candy sweetness. And then your finish will actually be that smoked whiskey. It comes across very, very subtle. It really does take something like this with that extra apple brandy cask finishing to kind of balance out all of that wood. To kind of make a bright, beautiful cocktail. That nice acidity will cut through those higher fat foods. I'm from the South. There's going to be biscuits and gravy. It matches that really, really beautifully. Kind of curious what you all think right now as I kind of scope around and look at some of the sweaters. I hope John doesn't mind. John Ackerman's wearing my favorite team in a nice Packer sweater. So appreciate that. My family's from Phillips, Wisconsin, so. And I saw that it was Danielle's birthday, so happy birthday, Danielle. Can't tell if that's a Rudolph sweater. I see the nice Christmas tree. I think that has actual active ornaments on it from Sarah. What is... So do we have any thoughts on the cocktail right now? That is a question. Luxardo for the Mazzotti. Which Luxardo do you have? Do you mind holding up a bottle? Because Luxardo is a brand. One of their most popular, iconic things is going to be their maraschino liqueur. So, Mrs. V, can you show me what you got? Because they also make a beautiful amaretto. The regular maraschino. Okay, so maraschino is a lot more concentrated on the sweetness. So what you're gonna get is a more almond flavor. Now, almond does complement oranges, and it actually complements apple very, very well. But you're gonna need to cut that ratio. So a full ounce would be way too sweet on that Luxardo. So I would probably start with a half ounce, and I might actually choose to add some just classic bitters if I was to use that. And I see Jason threw out there asking about Amaro. I love Amaro. There's at least 3 to 4 different Amaros. Depending on the Amaro, you'll have to find that ratio. Jason, which brand are we talking about? Because each Amaro has different herbs, spices, and sweetness levels. Some can be very straightforward, like the Moletti. Oh, Nonino is beautiful. I would use about a 3/4 of an ounce of Nonino. I personally would prefer a Nonino over the almond aspect. So Nonino has just a really nice, beautiful high herb content. It will be sweeter. So I would use about 3/4 of an ounce, and you wouldn't need to add any bitters. And you'd be actually playing on all the flavors of a Black Manhattan. So the one thing about Amaros is they almost always have a bitter orange peel in there. Don't quote me on this, I didn't research it, but from taste memory, Nonino definitely uses the Italian like bitter orange peel. I'd have to double check on that one, but definitely would like that. So there are other aperitifs. I'm just going to show you another one. As we've been talking about all the 3 main types of Italian liqueurs. So this is the Contratto Aperitivo. This one is brighter, a lot sweeter. And as you can see, one uses carrots, one uses cochineal. So there's a lot of fun you can have with different aperitivos, Italian liqueurs. I'm a sucker for them. There's always multiple types. And the main thing you have to know when you sub one in for the type of cocktail we're using is to adjust that ratio to where you like it. Just play around with it. Like start off at half an ounce is kind of my like benchmark, and then move it up to almost at most half of your hard liquor. The reason being is liqueurs by category have about 20% sugar. So you don't want to add too much sugar. You don't want that huge glycemic spike in your drink. So a question there about using Carpano. I'm going to assume that is the Carpano Vermouth. Lovely. You're going to have a red wine kind of aspect to it, obviously, because vermouths are fortified, kind of actually herbalized, aromatized red wines. Carpano has a big kind of pungent sweetness. I would probably still add a little bit of bitters, and I would start at half an ounce if I was to use the Carpano Vermouth. And I've always recommended, the fun thing about all these different Italian liqueurs is you don't need to keep them all at once. Unless you're like me and you love to have half an ounce before a meal, half an ounce after a meal, you want to have different vibes, you want some of them in your coffee, just rotate them. That's the whole fun of spirits, is there's so many different herbal blends with these Italian liqueurs between the aperitivos, the Amaros, and the vermouths, and they can all be drank straight. They're all really wonderful, well quality made spirits. So yeah, just rotate them. Like just, you know, you bought Nonino Amaro, maybe try Moletti's next, or Averna. You bought this, the Mazzotti Aperitivo, try that Contratto that I showed you, try Aperol. Just kind of change them up and just for your cocktails, you're just going to tweak them by percentages. I hope we're enjoying this guy. For my family, it'll always be a nice Christmas ham with horseradish. And so that will out really well. That's probably why I actually chose the kind of that sweeter perception on the back end of the palate by using this Mazzotti. So has everyone had a second to go around, kind of look at all the different sweaters? and see who we should pick for a gift card.
If everyone wants to show everybody their sweaters, and you can kind of change your view to gallery view if you can't see them, or if your camera's not on and you want to participate, turn it on now so we can see it. And then if anyone has any votes or whatever, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll kind of go from there to see. Look at Jason's is nice over there. That looks like a nice apron. Anyone have anyone that they want to vote for? Anyone that's off camera? We have some pretty good ones out there. We got to vote for the T-Rex sweater, so James. Vote for Sarah. Where's Sarah? She's got the nice glass Christmas tree glasses on and matching sweater. That's a nice one. A vote for Chad. Where's Chad? Looks like a nutcracker. Yeah. Another one for, Jason with the nice apron. Another vote for James. And then Patty and their hats. Another vote for Chad. 2 votes for Jason. There's a lot of votes for Jason on here. I think that might be the winner. Jason, you are our winner. Congratulations. I will message you, and I'll have you reach out to Rebecca at Davidson's, and she will get you your gift card so that you can have that. So thank you everyone for participating. I appreciate it. You all had great get-ups, and awesome job. Back to Dave, and he can finish us out with this last cocktail.
So one thing I did forget, let's say you didn't have any oranges for that last cocktail. Just cheat and use a little pulp-free orange juice, 3/4 of an ounce. It is a lot sweeter than fresh pressed orange, and that's why you're just going to lower that ratio. So the last one takes a little bit of prep work, and there's always someone in the family, and my older brother included, that you can't get them to drink bourbon any other way than a bourbon and Coke. And one of the biggest questions I ever had around the holidays is the amount of people who bought Frangelico, which is a beautiful hazelnut liqueur, for cakes. And they're like, how the heck do I use the rest of this bottle and do something that's kind of not overly sweet, kind of fun, just very, very simple. So we're going to take a play on, and I always call this the You'll Tie One On. This is a late evening for us. When we get out the Rummy Cube, maybe we're playing some pinball or Face 10 or something. You got to be a little bit careful. You don't realize how much you're drinking. So I'll just go over this, the reason I chose Old Grandad Bonded. I love Old Grandad Bonded, made in Claremont. And there's small batch distillery of Jim Beam. There's the big bulk facility, and there's a little small batch distillery. 100 proof, which is really important. Anytime I'm infusing alcohol, I want that higher proof. So if you drop something in below 40%, you could grow bacteria. So this is kind of that safe, easy way. It's 100 proof. I'm going to drop a vanilla bean in it. There's no way I don't keep it from being sterile. So nice little fun things. So this bottle right here, while I was redoing the ratios and getting ready for Thanksgiving, I've already infused a vanilla bean in. And as you can see, maybe not, some of the vanilla beans float to the bottom. And then you just have this long vanilla bean in here. Now, some people, if they're not going to go through this before New Year's, will choose to take the vanilla bean out. I don't mind. In fact, it's a lot like vanilla extract. It just kind of gets stronger as it goes longer, and you don't use as much. So, like, how do we make that vanilla bean infused bourbon? Well, just get your Old Grandad, So right now I have a 1 liter. So 1 liter to 1 vanilla bean. Let's say you wanted to use a 175, 2 vanilla beans. Let's say, as I was saying earlier, we're kind of using up all those spices that we bought for the holidays. Let's say you get into your cabinet and you're like, yeah, I have a vanilla bean, and you shake it and it sounds like a baby's rattle and it's hard as a rock. Well, we have 2 options. You can take that vanilla bean out and you'll watch that snaps. You can just throw it in the bottle straight and know that it'll take a little bit longer to infuse, and you won't be able to get all the individual beans out of it. So it will just take an extra about a week or 2 to get to that really pungent state. Or you can take a little bit of your bourbon, pour it back into that little spice jar, and in about a day or 2, it'll soften up and we'll be able to do the next step. So, nothing wrong here. This is basically making vanilla extract with bourbon instead of vodka. And it'll nicely soften and you'll be able to do what we're going to do here. So this is a new one. And I swear every year, I'm like, I have vanilla beans, and then I go in the cabinet and they're hard as a rock. So it's a nice way to use up those ingredients you didn't use for cooking. We're now using for cocktails. So we'll get our money's worth. So I'm going to take out one of these Madagascar vanilla beans. Yeah. See, Chad talked about seeping it for less than a week. Yeah, if you're putting a whole bean in, you're going to need about 2 to 3 weeks for the skin to soften up and some of the actual vanilla beans to come out. So what I'm going to try to do is find the right spot on camera here. So we've got our whole vanilla bean. We've got our little paring knife. And you've always got that little tip of the bean. That's where I like to start. So I'm going to lay that flat. Take my paring knife, and I'm going to try to cut just beautifully down the middle like peeling a banana. Very similar. So once you cut down that nice, easy, hopefully you don't cut yourself because paring knives can be brutal. We've split the vanilla bean. Now you want to be careful when opening it. You don't want to run your thumb down it yet. But if you did run your thumb down it, and you got all those beautiful little vanilla beans, vanilla seeds, I should say, from the vanilla bean, just kind of scrape it into your bottle. Like I said, why I love to use 100 proof, it's going to be sterile. So now we've got our bean beautifully split open. We're going to take that back of that paring knife, hopefully not drop it like that, and just scrape it along the bean. So then the tip of your knife will have those nice vanilla beans in it. And just do what you did with your finger if you got it on there. Just kind of push it down into the bourbon. I go right the first time, left the second time, just trying to make sure I get all those beautiful little seeds out. And you don't need the most expensive vanilla beans in the world. As you can see, I'm just using store brand Madagascar vanilla beans. We're infusing bourbon. We're not making, you know, a cake for Chopped or some huge competition like Iron Chef, all right? We're just kind of have some fun with some tweaking up that bourbon and Coke. I swear, I mean, my older brother, that's the only way he'll drink bourbon, but he does drink a lot of it. So then we'll just push those beans down in there. I don't know if you could see those fall. So the top will have all those little seeds right there. So we'll just cork it and we'll shake it. And what we're doing is we're just trying to drag all those beans down into the bottom. So what I found when I split it up and I get all those little seeds in there, I get that intensity of the vanilla within a week. I like it really strong. I'm going to finish it within a month. So I'm just going to take that whole vanilla bean pod that we had left and just drop her in there. And voila, it can sit in your cabinet. It's over 80 proof. It's going to be sterile for 100 years. So you just made vanilla bourbon. Now, the one thing is, before you go to serve it, you'll always want to kind of shake it up if you want it extra bourbony. If you don't want an extra vanilla, if you don't want any seeds coming through on the cocktail without using a strainer, you don't want to like shake it right before serving. So we'll go back to this bottle that I did. And I guarantee you, just splitting the seeds out and getting them in there, and you will have made this very vanilla intense. Unless you're going dirty south, it's going to be hard to finish this liter tonight. So it will just keep getting stronger. And so let's just go back to this one that I've already done. And so now we're just making a very simple bourbon and coke. So we've added the perception of sweetness from the vanilla bean with a very dry bourbon that actually is very mild on the oak. So for me, it's hard to add vanilla beans to a very oaky bourbon. I want something very more on those nutty chestnut, mild kind of characteristics, those things in the mid palate, because we're going to add, bam, sweetness with the Frangelico. And obviously, we all know soda has sugar. I use the Mexican Cokes or real sugar. I just don't do the high fructose corn syrup because I find it interferes with my booze. I find I don't get as much bourbon flavor. I get more on the tip of my tongue, just the overall sweetness. So, and then just I use a little eyedropper for your bitters. You might have that Angostura shaker, same concept. Just classic bitters because we just wanted to cut some of that overall sweetness. And the beautiful thing about this is you can layer it in a cocktail shaker, or we can just layer it in our glass. So if I'm going to layer in my glass, I'm going to take my bitters, either 2 dashes or a couple drops of just the classic Angostura bitters, the one bitters that you need to do almost anything with. And then, of course, I forgot my measure right in front of me, so hold on a second. This is my Niagara Falls measure that I bought when I was 9, so obviously I knew there was going to be a future in this. And we're going to use that nice 2 ounces of bourbon. Now at 100 proof, once again, this is going to be over 2, what they call 2 safe drinks. So expect to take about an hour with this. Otherwise, you'll tie one on pretty hard. So when we talked earlier about sweeter cordials, don't always go to that 2-to-1. Like to cut it down a little bit. Nice, like 3/4 ounce, maybe even a little bit less. So if you're not a big Frangelico fan, you don't like the hazelnut, or you just kind of want that mild accent that kind of brings out bourbon wood in a very mild bourbon, you go a little bit higher. If you want it just more mellow, you want to focus more on like the corn aspects of the bourbon, go a little bit lower. Go about 3/4 ounce. Drop her in there. Now, one of the main things you've noticed is I've done the bitters, the bourbon, and the cordial into the glass before adding any ice. The reason I do that is if you add ice first and you build on top of ice, and there's a reason to build on top of ice for high proof cocktails and things like that, the first spirit you add will dilute the most. So you're not getting an even dilution of the ingredients you add. And I want a very even dilution. So that way, when I go to top it with ice to my glass, I know if you don't want an intense bourbon feel. So if you had filled with the glass and then poured the bourbon over first, the bourbon gets really diluted in water. Same thing would go if you poured the Frangelico first. The reason I put the bitters at the bottom is I like the bourbon to kind of splash it around, absorb it first, then the cordial. So we've now got this 9-ounce tumbler, nice little cubes, very simple, classic bourbon and Coke concept, just at the top. Now, if you wanted it less bourbony or you just didn't want it that strong, just go with a bigger glass. This is a 9.5-ounce tumbler. Pretty standard for someone who's going to just do that slow sipping after dinner, maybe with some ice cream, maybe a little pumpkin pie, maybe a little apple pie. Just give it a gentle stir. And you'll see that vanilla, that hazelnut, the bitters come in late. That's to kind of stop your brain from just pounding it like it's a, a simple sugary shot or something at the bar like we were back in college. So I just saw a question come through for someone who doesn't like Frangelico. Doesn't like hazelnut. Do you not like nuts at all, or do you just not like hazelnut where it's got that like sweet, savory? Because hazelnut's an actual different family of the tree of nuts. Just hazelnut. Got a fun one for you. All right, give me 1 second. We'll be right back. During last year's Oaked and Smoked event, I swear, lots of people bought Screwball. So loving that peanut. Same thing. You're going to get that kind of peanutty flavor. Maybe cut down a little bit because this has that really richness to it. So we'll just do our dashes again. Do our infused bourbon again. Top with ice, little Coke, and go. Oh, amaretto. Chad, you're a man after my own heart. There's nothing that beats cherries, vanilla, and Coke together. Not kidding, it's always in my ready cabinet. I would cut from 3/4 of an ounce to 1/2 ounce. Or if we're using amaretto, I would just float that 1/2 ounce on top after I've done the process. I'll show you real quick with amaretto. Because the beauty with amaretto is that strong almond richness. So you're just going to go bitters down, your 2 ounces of your vanilla infused OGD. And like I said, if you split the bean, you can use it tonight. It's going to be nice and rich. But when I'm using amaretto, I like to float it. And that's because most of the quality amarettos, the best part is the aromatics. So you notice I did the bitters, the bourbon, the ice, stirred it, Coke it, and float it to the top of your glass. Don't even need to measure it. Like I said, this is the after dinner drink. You're going to need to party responsibly, but yeah. Definitely agree it's the fun adult cherry Coke. Yeah, Screwball's not for me, but one of the most popular spirits out there too. So, but if you go back to the Screwball version, the reason I cut it down is how strong that peanut butter is. But for me, it's definitely the classic Frangelico. I'm a sucker for hazelnut, love it in my coffee, love those little like round pirouette things that come in a stick. My grandma always had those. So that's why this is always a holiday favorite for me. Am I going to drink all three? I got a wife to help me on these because that's 6 ounces of bourbon and that's a lot. But will not waste it. You can almost strain it. The Coke will be a little flat, but you could you can just top it with a fresh bottle, add a little bit more bubbles. Yes, I am a weenie. I am not a very strong drinker, despite all of the years of drinking scotch. I do have to measure myself to make sure I don't overdo it. Any other questions tonight?
If we don't have any more questions, oh, there's another one, Jason. Jason just asked, he accidentally sent it directly to me, but he said, other bourbon recommendations for vanilla.
Oh, for vanilla infusing bourbon, you can vanilla infuse any bourbon you want. Like I personally choose Old Granddad Bonded because of the lack of bitterness of the oak. So if you were to take regular Jim Beam, Evan Williams 1783, which I love. Evan Williams bonded. Those oaks are much stronger. You're just going to need to pull out the vanilla bean. One of the reasons I love Oak Grain Down bonded is I don't have to think about it once I've infused it. Because vanilla, the skin of the vanilla bean will actually eventually add bitter whiffs. Usually takes about a month to start turning from sweet to bitter.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. We really appreciate you being with us tonight. And thank you everybody else for joining us as we are closing out 2020, which is crazy that it's already here, but happy holidays to everybody. And once again, thank you to Dave. Thank you to Davidsons. And thank you to all of you for being with us, and hope to see you all back with us again in January in 2021. So thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you all for bearing with me. My first time on camera, so I appreciate it.